Hello everybody! What's up? Welcome to Reacting Reddit, where real people read, react, and summarize trending topics using comments online to summarize everything better. So today we're going to be talking about the situation in Myanmar. And I think that the best way I can help you guys understand kind of what's going on is by not focusing on what's happening now in Myanmar, but what happened in the past and some of the context about the leaders. So if you want to learn about Myanmar, you got to learn how to pronounce this person's name. And her name is Aung San Suu Kyi. It's like, it basically looks how it is pronounced, like it's spelt, except the end part, K-Y-I, it's pronounced Chi, right? That's the part that's kind of confusing, but aside from that, it's Aung. And I'm probably messing this up, but for those of you who really know what you're talking about, I'm trying. I really am trying. And I'm trying to help people pronounce it right, okay? Aung San Suu Kyi, okay? And this person is hugely important to the point where she wasn't actually the president of Myanmar, but if you search for Myanmar leader, right, someone else comes up. But if you Google image search Myanmar leader, did you notice that? Like, look, technical leader, boom. Image result of Myanmar leader, right? This individual plays a really, really big role. And from the Western perspective, she's a bit controversial because of, there's some people called the Rohingya people who are a kind of Muslim who are attacked and killed by Buddhists in Myanmar, and vice versa. It's important to understand that you can't look at this from like a perspective of what things are like in the US. Like in the US, there's a government, and the government has basically total authority absolutely everywhere, except in Native American land. And that's just because of an exception they made. It's not because they actually can't control it. Whereas in a lot of other places, the countries don't really work that way. The governments have areas where they're in power, and then there's other areas where other factions have power, right? And some of these factions are formed primarily of minority groups, and they're very violent, but they're not all the minority people, right? And you can't think of it that way. You can't think that, oh, all of the Buddhists are killing the Muslims, or all the Muslims are killing the Buddhists. It really isn't that simple. And it's true that a lot of Muslims were killed. A lot. More Muslims have been killed than Buddhists in Myanmar. That's a reality. But you can't just project a Western, if you've never been there, you don't know the country, you can't talk about it like you do. And as Westerners, especially like people like me, we haven't ever been there. Anything I say, I have to keep in mind, I don't know what it's like. I have to give people who live there and who talk the benefit of the doubt. And if they can't say something confidently, there's probably a reason for that. So before I made this video, I looked a lot into this person's history. And it's really remarkable because she basically was in Myanmar, and then she went to England to get a degree in education, right? And then had a family there and had 2 kids and a husband. But then tensions in Myanmar were escalating, and her father was a really big political figure prior who had been assassinated, right? And she ended up coming back because her mother got in a stroke, or had a stroke, and she had to take care of her mother. So she left her family to go take care of her family who needed more urgent care, and that put her back in the country, and she got politically involved. And this person, whatever you think about them now, there's a lot of controversy about her because she was a Nobel Peace Prize person, but then says that like ethnic cleansing and other things aren't happening in Myanmar when tons and tons of people are being killed. And she comes off as saying that's not happening, right? So that's hugely controversial as a Nobel Peace Prize winner. But you have to really take into her whole life into perspective and understand what she is and what created her, right, basically? So she came back to her country, and right then it was more political upheaval. She became more involved in politics. And this individual has spent over 15 years of her life arrested under house arrest and unable to leave and in fear of being killed. She's been attacked when she was supposedly being protected by government people. She was attacked by militias, and the government people didn't try and help because it was in their interest that she might die. This individual has gone through a lot, and one thing that sticks out about her is that she regularly chose democracy in the name of her people and the benefit of her people over her own health and her family. She did that kind of thinking for years, decades. When her husband was going to die, she didn't leave the country to go see him because she knew that she wouldn't be allowed back in the country. She chose to be on her country's side instead of being a normal human. She, and historically, did all of these things that you can tell, like, people don't do that kind of stuff. People normally don't make those kind of sacrifices. And even with the controversy now, you can't help but wonder, what's really going on here? Why is this person in a situation where they have to be quiet about something that they've spoken so much in their past against? And from the Western perspective, Western people, honestly, I hate us sometimes. I really do. Because Westerners have this perspective of, like, they take situations in other countries and they come to a country and they apply a bunch of all this math stuff and they're like, well, you aren't doing this, you need to do this, and yada, yada, yada. And they're like, they really do in general, we think we know best, and it's fucking ignorant. Because the reality is we raped and pillaged and murdered humans for hundreds of years to get an advantage that we hold over society to this day. It's unfair, and it's not right. And as a white person, it's my responsibility to help fight against that, help fight against this ignorance of other white people. Because even if you're just some person, you're like, that wasn't me, I never did any of that. That was just like my great-great-great-grandparents. It's like, you are still founded upon the wealth of these people. You have material access to things that these people don't have because of the colonialization of the world that you benefit from. And if you study history at all, and you're a person of European descent who has a good life, you have that rape, murder, and pillage to thank for that. And that's reality. And it's your responsibility to make up for that and to help be more informative to the world and cheer people up and stop saying ignorant shit about other countries that you don't know anything about. And I'm an ignorant shit white person here trying to talk about a country I've never been to, but I can assure you that I'm not gonna just say random crap as if it's the way that things are, as if I understand what it's like to be there, because I don't. So now we're gonna get into the rest of this video where we look at the Reddit comments from people who are actually there and see what they have to say about the situation, and sometimes other foreigners and stuff chiming in if they were useful. I got rid of a bunch of comments in this because I can go through with this tool and get rid of the comments that aren't useful or informative or funny. And so I just focused on either foreigners providing an interesting perspective or mostly accounts of people who are at least are claiming to actually be there. All right, so let's get into it. This post was originally on Reddit and by Is This the End of Me? And the question is, Redditors from Myanmar, how are you after the army seizing power in a coup today? This individual says, Burmese here. I woke up today around 6 a.m. Facebook posts indicating that military detained the civilian leaders. Wi-Fi and phone lines were cut off around 7. All television and radio stations went silent. Phone was a brick. I can't communicate to relatives in other states or abroad. TV announced the military coup will last at least a year. All they broadcast is military songs and propaganda. Drove to my aunt's house. People are crowded at supermarkets and banks. Made sure she's safe. Mytel, the military-backed carrier here, was the first to get connection, around 11 a.m. Fiber internet restored around 11:30. Other cell carriers still nope. People on Facebook are outraged. There was a letter from ASSK. I'm not sure if it's fake or not. Banks are now closed for the foreseeable future. All flights are grounded until May. Got cell reception back around 5 p.m. Can connect to other states. Health minister resigned. No idea what will happen to vaccines. Future uncertain. Edit. 7:30 p.m. Curfew announced. No going out after 8 p.m. Can't verify online yet. 8:30 p.m. New ministers appointed for government ministries. Highways are blocked and all interstate travel is prohibited. My feeling? I feel lost. I'm worried about my 2-month-old son's future. I grew up under military regime. I grew up under fear. We only got democracy and freedom to talk freely about for 10 years, and only 5 years of true civilian leadership. All of them gone. Sanctions will be back. But they were never effective as China and Russia backs the military. Only civilians' economy get affected. It's like when Voldemort seized the Ministry of Magic and all hope is lost for the wizarding world. And there's no Harry Potter in sight. So long, and thanks for all the fish awards. Oh, that's so sweet. This user says, I'm from India, and it's very scary to happen in a country so close. Stay strong, brother. I hope things will get better. Indian Army and other adjacent territories are much more likely to engage, and given the history of South Asia, it's quite an awful situation now for the region. Borders have always been very tense here. I can't even imagine this. I'm in the US and was watching our electoral college count live on January 6th. When things began to escalate and the rioters broke down the door to the Capitol, I had never felt panic like that before. I've been in dangerous situations, but the overwhelming feeling of your government being taken down is so bizarre. I remembered quickly filling up my car with gas, then getting groceries in case things got really weird. And I'm not even in DC. I couldn't imagine feeling the way I did that day, and then also having the internet, communications, and services taken down. I wish you the best. Be safe. May you all be well and safe. My dad was born there and experienced the first coup as a child, and he mentioned that it was the beginning of the downfall of a wonderful country. What's happening now is literally like a rehash of the 60s. He spoke so fondly of Myanmar growing up before the coup. What a great, thriving, progressing country it was. People, now can you see what Aung San Suu Kyi was up against? You understand why she was so careful, why she never upbraided the military for their war crimes. Here's your answer. Her power was always by a thread. Western righteousness and ignorance is a peculiarly concomitant phenomenon. So, to give you guys some context into the actual story, now that we talked about the context that you need to understand to know what's going on, when the military coup happened, and yeah, the military in Myanmar performed a coup and overthrew the government and arrested a bunch of the political officials and are replacing them with different people, and this leader was also arrested. That's happening while, we're talking about GameStop and worrying about our US stuff. Meanwhile, a government in another country was actually overthrown by its own military. Like that happened, And that just goes to show the things we focus on as a country and the way our attention spans work, it hurts the rest of the world. They hurt so much, and we get like one news line about something like this, an actual military coup in a foreign country with a bunch of like outside US interest. Like Myanmar is interesting because the people who really are into democracy, like you could argue they're westernized, but it doesn't seem to have as much evidence of like, oh, the US putting a bunch of money into fueling a rebellion. Like this individual was quite non-violent. So she deserves your respect. She really, really does. And most Burmese people that I've spoken with, at least, or sorry, Myanmar people. I try not to say Burma because it's a Western thing. You should say Myanmar because that's what they call it. But also Myanmar is what the military people call it, and so some people from there prefer Burma. It's confusing. There's a lot of different ways to think about it. But my point here is that this individual is so renowned that she's not even legally able to be the president because she has a kid in a foreign country. But that doesn't matter. People like her so much that she still has power and political sway. And you could argue that the military would have just killed her ages ago, but they're scared that if they kill her, then people will rise against the military. They'll marty her. So that's why, essentially, they kept her alive under house arrest for over 15 years of her life. This individual being arrested by the military of her own country is a regular, recurring thing, unfortunately. So the fact that it happened, it should shock you, but you shouldn't be ignorant to the past of the country. And again, you should focus on what the people in the country are saying, not what the foreigners are saying and putting down on about that country, right? Moving on. I'm an international student that is planning to go to Canada on the 16th of February. I already booked a ticket, but was told today morning that it was cancelled and the military closed off the airport. All morning, we have no phone nor data connections. The only ones that are able to spread what's happening are the younger generation that have access to Wi-Fi, but mine was cut off in the morning too. I spent the whole morning worried and in panic, but my father, who is coming to Yangon, since he has a few ties with the military, I still haven't heard from him. I really hope he is safe, and I hope the people of Myanmar can walk through this without unnecessary bloodshed, unlike what happened in 1988. So the good news is that I'm finally able to connect with my father again. But the bad news is there are 2 military trucks parked at the entrance to my street, so no one dares to go out. It's eerily silent today. I feel so uncomfortable with the silence, but I think silence is better at this point than gunshots. I hope they will go away soon. Don't give up. I live under them for half of my life. I was in Yellow Revolution back when I was a teenager, and we don't even have a decent internet connection back then. At least this time, the whole world can see how, and the whole populace can see what the hell is actually happening. I'm extremely worried about what the UN is doing nothing and just sanctioning against, though, because it didn't actually affect these despicable peoples and only affected the civilians like us. I don't want you guys and the future generations to live like we did. We will fight for it in any way that we can. 8888 is something you can easily search up online anytime. I just said 8888 since I didn't have time nor the Wi-Fi to explain at that moment. Plus, a lot of things around the world happened in 1988, but the numbers 8888 is specifically used by the people of Myanmar. It wasn't actually in the year 1888. It's called that because key events occurred on August 8th, 1988. Only the fiber internet works, and the people are panic buying. Other than that, not so much. I live in the capital, and I have not seen police or military people today yet. How is living in the capital, by the way? I've been there once, and it seemed quite empty in general, with things pretty far apart from each other. No answer to that. I'm an international student following online classes from abroad while I'm back home in Myanmar, and things just shut down, internet and mobile services, in an attempt to ease the coup. We really need help while the military threatens our lives, any places, anytime. We are already damaged by COVID as a third world country. Now we gotta struggle with military coup. This is a disaster. People's lives here are too flimsy to feed their families, in and out with the poverty line, and I'm damn worried about my politician dad. Are the military leaders the same as they were in 2012 when the government was opening the country? I was lucky enough to visit your beautiful country in 2016, but English-speaking locals were still rather wary to give opinions about the military. The only ones who would speak about it were English expatriates, and those drunk idiots can't be trusted. I totally agree with that. Yeah. You can find tons of expat English speakers who just rant about politics of the country and they shouldn't be talking about. Oh my god. Plar2 says, why the downvotes? This is a legit question. I grew up in Myanmar and spent the first 21 years of my life there under military rule. My guess is that this kid's dad is a well-connected person, and he must have used connections in the past to do well financially. Most people in Myanmar can't afford to go get a foreign education, let alone a plane ticket. Saltiest potato. I'm trying not to read the usernames for this thread. Slight chance I'll get arrested, but last time I checked, those fossils in charge now don't know what Reddit is, so I don't give a fuck. It's horrible. All my friends and family are demoralized after the news of the coup, and to make matters worse, Wi-Fi was cut off, and I couldn't get a signal for half of the damn day. It's terrifying how they can just turn it off whenever they wish, and there's nothing we can do. Even worse, the only channel on TV is the military-owned news channel. Rumor is that even fiber internet will be cut off in 5 hours, and there will be no way to access the internet other than through military-owned Mytel carrier. This is actual suppression of information and monopolizing at the same time. There are apps that can send or receive messages over Bluetooth, using everybody's phones together as a network. Download a couple of them. They have varying levels of effectiveness, and have all of your friends, neighbors, and family do the same. Download and use a VPN while you can. It's unlikely they'll block out access to it, but it'll be a good way to safeguard yourself and make sure you can talk outside the country. If your Android FD Droid has the ability to share apps to people nearby without internet, download that and some mesh chat apps that others mentioned, as well as a VPN and Tor. Proton VPN is good and has a free plan. Malvad is also good. If you have access to it, put a copy on the 8-pack on an SD card as well as a USB drive that supports USB-C. You can remove the SD card from an Android, install F-Droid, and then reinsert the original SD card. You can also download an app called Ripple to disguise FD Droid as a calculator if you fear it will be discovered. If you have internet access, Signal has a strong encryption and should work. Make sure to install VeriCrypt or FileVault if you believe your computer hard drive will be searched. iPhones encrypt automatically. Android varies per device. Briar will work on Android and functions without internet or cellular. If you haven't already, I recommend downloading Tor immediately. It's a browser built using the Tor network, basically a VPN designed to circumvent government censorship and stay anonymous. It's not foolproof, but it's great for exactly this type of situation. Download Wikipedia and a database reader. All of that information can be found here. Wikipedia.org, Wiki database download. It's not a huge download, and it will become very valuable for you. Myanmar is bordered by Thailand, Bangladesh, Laos, China, India, and Cambodia. Some of those countries aren't exactly known for being pro-democracy. Also, most airports have been closed off, and places like Yangon, a big population center, are far from the border, so the military will be in full control by the time they can reach another country. Hey y'all. Honestly, this was pretty predictable, as they've been escalating tensions for the past week or so. Today was the day the new parliament was supposed to convene, so the most sensible day to strike. Woke up to my Wi-Fi and both of my phones being cut, along with landlines. Went to the market and other places to get food and other provisions, as this is not the first time something like this happened in recent history. All in all, there are people in worse situations than me, so right now I'm just grateful to be safe and not in danger. If you can, please raise awareness about this to people around you, as I don't see it being widely talked about. This happened in Uganda too during elections, with internet being cut. Banks got shut down for a whole weekend. We expect it'll get cut again sometime soon. Looks like other countries are learning from African dictators. Especially Western media. People are only talking about ASSK, and people are congratulating on the military. Oh, that's Aung San Suu Kyi, the person I was talking about earlier. I haven't said ASSK, but that's the acronym form of the former leader's name, or the still perceived people leader, I guess, because she still shows up if she passes the Google search test. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna restart that. Especially Western media. People are only talking about Aung San Suu Kyi, and people are congratulating on the military without actually knowing that our phones are all cut and that banks are all closed indefinitely. I meant to say that Western media was only talking about Aung San Suu Kyi, and that people who see those articles are saying things like good riddance without actually knowing that this isn't just about her. I'm sorry for the confusion. My mind was racing, and I forgot to check if my comment made sense or not. Woke up to my Wi-Fi and both phones being cut, along with landlines. Went to the market and other places to get food and other provisions, as this is not the first time. Just another day, I guess. An American here. Hey, I happened upon this story in BBC News website about 12 hours ago, overnight last night, while searching for other news. From the article, I gathered this may have been anticipated far prior to only the past week or so, maybe up to a year ago. It's interesting to see someone from Myanmar use the greeting, "Hey y'all." I'm sorry such things are happening in your country, and many others very recently, and I hope you all somehow emerge safely. The news I was seeking was on the current status of investigations and arrests from our own insurrection at our capital by white nationalists and other insane brainwashed people, which happened less than 1 month ago. Most of the relatively few arrested individuals so far have turned out to be either current or former US military or police, from regulars up to commissioned officers. Suddenly, it seems no one is talking about the ongoing investigations and arrest efforts much any longer. We in the US can barely handle our own problems, which can run wide and very deep. I often wonder what sincere thoughts are currently held regarding average American citizens by intelligent people from other countries. I wish you much good fortune, all the people in Myanmar. Yeah, some people would be supported by that. Other people would be like, yeah, you're talking about some people doing an attack where one person died in your capital, and you're comparing that, you're bringing that up in a discussion about an actual coup where the government was overthrown. Like, is it relevant? It's yeah. But it kind of points out how much the U.S. culture just focuses. It's not. I wish it was just the U.S. that obsessed with U.S. culture, but it's not. It's the whole world. It's kind of depressing, to be honest. I am from Myanmar, and I'm been scared, dude. There are news that they're going to cut off the internet at midnight. First, the pandemic, and now this. I just want to finish my college, have some jobs, and support my family. This fucking sucks, man. I'm crying. I'm not in Myanmar right now, but from a call with my mom just now, it seems like they've restored internet, but phone lines are still dead. Military has taken a bunch of prisoners from the Democratic Party and abolished parliament. They've also made General Min Sui as acting president. Military supporters are marching streets and beating up citizens and journalists. Pretty much all I know. The internet is very sporadic now, but here's a further update if I can get it to post. A snap curfew was called for 8 p.m. local time here in Yangon. All shops and businesses closed quickly, and there was a rush of people on the streets to get home. Mobile data is now worse than this morning. As of 8:45 p.m., all shops are closed and there are very few cars on the street. Nothing seemed too bad though, just a quick closure of activity. I'm in Yangon, and I can give an end-of-day update. It's just before 6 p.m. local time here. Phone and mobile voice services. Yes, they were out of action early morning around 2 or 3 p.m. for me, including text messages. I've managed to get only one voicemail connected mid-afternoon, MPT to MPT to a friend. No other voice calls successful. I just tried again. SMS still intermittent. Data is okay but drops out. 2. Panic buying. Nil that I could see. Downtown area. Seriously, nobody at mini-marts, city marts, and another marketplace. It was quiet. Only one checkout was open. 3. Banks, ATMs. All major banks are closed. All major banks, ATMs, CB, KBZ, AYA, YOMA are all offline. AGB and MAB were working as of 4 p.m. at a standalone shopping mall set of ATMs at the entrance, i.e. not attached to a bank. 4. Military presence. None that I saw downtown. I did not pass City Hall next to Sul Pagoda, but I could see all the way down to Sul Road and from Hogyok Road. Sorry, I didn't practice pronouncing these. Police presence. Nothing unusual. 6. Miscellaneous. Grab down this morning. Food Panda seems online now. What else? Just saw this post and thought I'd like to add. Doing alright, but there's a martial law being enforced tomorrow. Curfew of 8 p.m. And if you're caught outside, They have permission to shoot to kill, apparently. I don't know if that's fake or not. Wi-Fi is being cut at midnight, apparently, and so is the electricity, apparently. No electricity? If I'm not mistaken, isn't Burma in Southeast Asia? No AC can't be pleasant, but then again, neither is your government being overthrown. It's funny how obvious you can tell when, like, US people are commenting, because whether you believe it or not, most people in tropical countries don't actually use air conditioning. Air conditioning's not really it's not necessary. Usually, like, you can think that it's necessary, and there are places where it's much more common, like in desert towns and cities. It is more common to have air conditioning. When you have outside temperatures that get up to, like, 110, 115, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, those are the scenarios where, yeah, okay, AC actually becomes kind of a life or death situation in those temperature ranges. But prior to that, most of the time, like here in Nicaragua, in Fahrenheit, it's a tropical country, and the temperatures in Fahrenheit range from, like 80 would be cool, and like 100 is a hot day, but like 92 is like the hotter part of an average day, right? And that's basically as much as it varies. It varies a bit more than that, but and from the U.S. you might be like, oh, that's so hot, have to have AC. I live here, I don't use AC. A lot of people who live in tropical countries don't use air conditioning because you don't need it. When you build houses out of cement and like sheet metal and this kind of thing, you build them in a way where you design them so people can't get in, but air can. So it's actually really common in like a lot of nations that have climates like this, where you have like entire walls inside your house that just open to the outside and let the air in. And there's a door you can open and a metal cage that stops people, but all the air can get through, right? And typically, you don't have hot water. The two appliances that most people in the US take for granted, I would argue don't really matter that much, because like as a person, I don't have hot water and I don't use air conditioning. And I'm happy. I don't want those things because I've learned how to live a life without them. And you can live a very good, high-quality life without those expensive unnecessities. But that being said, in the US, tons of people have air conditioning where they don't actually need it. And what's sad is a lot of them are poor who aren't earning enough money, and they're paying a lot of money, but everybody has AC, so everyone continues to use it. It's complicated. But in most places, AC is too expensive to be worth using. Like here in Nicaragua, if you use AC, it'll effectively double your internet bill. Or sorry, your internet bill. It'll effectively double your electrical bill, regardless of how you use it. And that's just because the government here will pay half of your electrical bill as long as you use less than 150 kilowatts. So when you use AC, you almost always will go over 150 kilowatts unless you're just using it a couple like days, just for a little bit, or just for like a couple hours at a time. And some people here are like that. They'll have a room that's contained and conservatively use the AC. And there's plenty of wealthy people who use AC like US people. But I'm just pointing out that in a lot of tropical countries, it's not like that. You don't need these material things that you think you need, and you can actually live a really good life without them. And in some cases with AC, you might actually be better off breathing circulated like outside air than air that's just being put through the same filter. You're thinking that the filter's always working, which is good if you're replacing it, but the moment there's some kind of infection or some kind of problem or toxicity in that filter, that's being spread into your entire house. So you go through some stressful shit and forget about your filter for a couple of years, you could be putting in yourself where you're actually putting bad air into your house and you don't even realize it. Like, it's a problem, so you gotta be careful. Moving on. Actually from Thailand, not Myanmar. So here in Thailand, there was a rally in front of Burmese embassy in Bangkok against the coup by Burmese people in Thailand. Oh, I accidentally skipped that comment. I'm sorry, I have to move on to the next one. This mixed feeling of hatred, anger, and disgust, I can't even describe. Right now, the military coup is official and will rule the country for over 1 year. Democratically elected politicians, as well as public figures, were taken by the military. They have our president and our leader, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, TV, radio, and phone signals were cut off. The internet connection can be cut down at any point. Our country and the people have been through so much enduring the pain for democracy. Now that we got it, we can't just let them take it back. It's time for us to stand up. Please help us in any way that you can. A friend of mine was on her way returning home from Yangon, from Mandalay, when all this happened. All lines were cut, and I have no way of confirming where she is right now. I hope she is at least settled at Mandalay and has not caught up with the military blocking the roads. I'm getting really worried for her. I can't sleep well. I sent her text messages when the line came back temporarily, but she still hasn't replied. And they're gonna shut it down, according to the news. Now I will never know if she's safe, and man, I'm just so worried. I don't know what to expect of the unforeseeable future. All my A-levels are cancelled, haven't answered a single one, and airports are being closed. My education is taking a huge hit, but I couldn't care less right now. All I need to know is if my friend is safe. I finally got a hold of her. Thank God, she's safe, staying at her relative's house in Mandalay. Coincidentally for her, she met her father on the way to Mandalay from Kalaw at Tuyoi. I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm sorry. So even though the situation's fucked up, at least she got her entire family residing in Mandalay and isn't separated. Also, there were rumors of internet lines being cut off, but apparently that didn't happen. At least we can still talk. Yeah, it looks like the internet, it's not so much internet lines were cut as like things were taken down and are being replaced with government-controlled infrastructure. And then there's a curfew on usage, right? So there's times of day where there is internet and electricity, and there's times where there's not. And that may be alarming to people in the US. But again, this is actually, stuff like this is more common in other countries. Like here, for example, where I live in the capital of Nicaragua, and there's pretty good access to water and electricity and that kind of thing. But in the middle of the day, like sometimes when they're like expanding water or there's too much stress or too many people are using it, you don't have water pressure really. And sometimes for the parts of the day where people are at work, you have like no water at all. But you almost always have water when people are at home, and sometimes it's like by like 10 at night, it's crazy strong. And it fluctuates a lot. So in the US, you kind of can often enjoy a life where your power doesn't go out unless there's a storm. But in most other humans' experiences, power can go out because it's purposeful, because there isn't enough power for everybody. So what happens when that stress is on the network is that you have to distribute it. You have to ration the electricity, and you have to ration the water. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I'm just saying that it's more typical in countries with these circumstances for things to be available for limited duration during the day instead of available all day. But recently Myanmar had enjoyed having these luxuries available all day. So that's why it's a big deal that they're suddenly not available. Hey, Burmese here. It's 1:08 in the morning. I can still use my Wi-Fi and internet. We're pretty safe because we're all fighting on Twitter and TikTok to get notice from international communities. We're now trending in Twitter. You can search it up. If you're Burmese or not studying or working in a foreign country, it will be appreciated that you use your social media platform to spread awareness about what's happening in Myanmar. I woke up at 6:30 today, like on every Monday. I opened Chrome to watch Attack on Titan, Season 4. The Wi-Fi was connected, but there was no internet connectivity. Nothing out of the ordinary yet. Then, I checked my phone to see that both of the network carriers had absolutely no signal. Sheer terror went through my body, and I connected the dots. Vietnamese here. Just heard about this a few moments ago, and damn, this sucks. The future of our own nation is uncertain as it is, but to hear a fellow brothers turning into a mess like this is not a pleasant sight. I pray for all brothers of freedom in Myanmar. Wait, what? Why is this not on my recommended news articles? People care more about telling me about natural remedies and other trash, but won't tell me when a military coup happens somewhere? Yeah, welcome to US news cycle! And European news cycle, and a lot of other wealthy nation news cycle. Actually, I guess basically all news cycles in wealthy nations in the world. Congrats. It sucks. I've literally been listening to the news all day on the radio, and I only learned about this because of this thread. Today's the day after the coup, and just an update, the internet and data got cut off and just started working now. It might differ from other regions. Shops and banks are once again cautiously opening, and there's no suspicious police or military presence thus so far. Looking on the practical side of things, most people, including me, are very skeptical of how the military is going to run things. I mean, in my view, the United States just imposed sanctions on us a few hours ago, and other countries are likely to do so too. And that's going to work out real well on our already bust economy. Plus, it'd be harder to get COVID-19 aid due to the airports being reportedly closed until May. I feel so numb because this whole incident feels so surreal even though it's happening right in front of my eyes. Personally, I don't feel scared. I guess I just feel helpless. My country's future is very uncertain now, and it feels, to me at least, like we'll be suffering a really difficult double blow from both the pandemic and this coup. I'm gonna interject here for a second and say that I'm a foreigner who hates sanctions. I wish that the US would just get over itself and realize that when it limits economies of other countries and it limits their ability to trade with the US, it doesn't stop the situation. It makes it worse because the people in power don't give a if the US sanctions them. They already did things that the US was going to sanction them for. They probably knew that that might be the consequence. And historically, they don't really care that much. The US likes to think, they would never do that because we would sanction them and choke them off for all of the opportunity in the world. But then in reality, what the US actually causes to happen is the suffocation of opportunity for the people in the country who need the opportunity most. The US, by sanctioning countries, suppresses the people in those countries. And it is a horrible thing to sanction a country. It should not be done. There are other foreign policy measures that should be done. Now, it's just like, something horrible happened in your country, and now your economy's suffering. We're gonna take sanctions now. Yeah, we gotta punish you, because this bad thing you did, people. Why'd you make a person who did bad things to the people in your country? Why'd you do that, other people who we're gonna blame? That's totally how US is. That's how its effect is on other people. And if you're a US person listening to me and you want to defend sanctioning, goff, I don't care. It hurts countries. It hurts the citizens in those countries. And it puts them in a position where it's harder for them to create democratic societies. The US does things with a good intention, but in actuality, it hurts and it causes the problem to get worse. And sanctions are a very, very good example of an old world policy being enforced on a new world when the reality is it makes the situation worse. You know how when you get a bug bite, it's itchy and you can scratch it, but it's gonna get worse. Well, the US has scratched that itch to the point of infection and death. This comment says, I'm a Burmese person living in the United States, and I was really excited for the new parliament members to take office today. When I saw the news that Daw San Suu Kyi, we call her Ame Suu, Mother Suu, was detained by the military, I broke down and cried in front of my wife and her parents who are from the US. She gave up so much in her life to help bring democracy to Myanmar, and the Burmese military regime keeps shitting the progress just to cover their asses. Yeah, seriously, if you're a US person and you like democracy, study this person's life. Because whatever you want to believe about the Peace Prize thing, if you look at her history, you cannot deny she chose her people and the name of democracy over her own well-being and her family. Multiple times, not just once or twice. She made a great deal of very real, authentic sacrifices. You should have her respect, and you should know about her. To be honest, I'm really conflicted about Aung San Suu after the treatment of the Rohingya Muslims under her leadership. She fought so hard for democracy in then Burma, won the Nobel Peace Prize, then turned around and persecuted the Rohingya. This is the problem. Like, Western people don't understand that, like, how the realities of other countries. She's the leader, but she was under house arrest by her own military for 15 years of her life. She couldn't leave. Literally couldn't. She was attacked in multiple times. She went through a lot. And if you think that she is the supreme deciding power over the entire military of her country, you obviously haven't looked at all into the history of Myanmar at all. So, like, that's why we have to be so careful. Like, I'm ignorant. I'm gonna tell you, listening to this, I don't know everything about Myanmar, but I want to learn more, and I want to talk to more people about it, and I want to encourage more people in the US to get educated about actual stuff that matters in other countries. You know? I don't think the US should get involved, but I wish that its people would talk about it, because that causes change. The US shouldn't sanction. The US should just talk about it. That's what's so irritating. The US government sanctions and F's the country over. Meanwhile, the US people don't talk about it, and they neglect their role. Because again, they could be talking about it, and they're not supposed to invade or anything. They're just supposed to bring attention to it and talk about it and put pressure on it that way, where all the other countries are talking about you, and not just like a flash in the pan moment, like boom, like really. It's maintained over months, right? We're talking about a coup that's gonna last for more than a year. Like, this is serious, right? And yet, it's just flash in the pan in US culture, and that sucks. And this video isn't gonna change that, but whatever, let's keep going. I've read your other comments. There is very strong misunderstanding about what Myanmar is like based on what you have said. The government only controls some parts of the country. It's a greater ethnic nation with many autonomous regions that the central government has no control over. It is as if there were multiple micro-governments in different parts of the country. To say the military did this or the military did that is a misnomer. The ethno-regionalism means that the fractionalization of governance into states, regions, union territory, self-administered zones, and self-administered division. If you ever thought that American followers of social media misinformation was divisive, in Myanmar, communication is fairly rudimentary as far as oversight goes. Misinformation led to brutal attacks and riots in huge degrees, and the rumors flooded WhatsApp and Facebook until unwarranted bigotry and galvanized xenophobia in some people that regional behaviors and attitudes flipped populations on ethnic populations. Anyhow, he's talking about the Rohingya people. Anyhow, I don't think I expanded well enough to give you a clear vision of why your assumptions about the buck stopping at the nation's president being misplaced. There was and is a power-sharing agreement between the pro-democracy people and the military, and you really should learn the history of Myanmar to fully understand why and how it came together. The Hidden History of Burma by Than Misu is an excellent primer for anyone wanting to understand the depth of complexity that is Myanmar. I don't know much about this, but I was under the impression that the persecution was performed by the military and that her government did not condemn it. However, this military is now in power and her government was arrested, so maybe this is one of the reasons she did not condemn it. Please correct this reading of the situation if I'm wrong. You should be clear about what you mean by her leadership in the country. As a leading political figure for democracy, her words carry a lot of weight. While she heads a political party, the Constitution, as written, does not allow her to be president, so she is not the leader of the country. In 2008, the military junta created a constitution that cemented many of their powers, and they shoulder the majority of the blame for what's happened in the Rakhine state. Unless I am missed something, Suu Kyi is guilty of either downplaying what happened or of not standing up for their rights and protection. But if the implication is that she had a hand in genocide, I've seen no evidence of that. Burmese person talking. I mean, it's pretty stressful. A lot of people have experienced this type of thing before, and it was not great. The stressful part is how you don't know what might happen. In the morning, all things were cut off, and we were worried about everything. I saw the statement from the military live. It was shocking to hear we would be in a state of emergency for a year. A person with absolute power can do anything in a second. Shots could be fired. People might get killed. Just hard to think what might happen if the military shows up on your street and starts knocking on your door. At first I was surprised because I thought that Myanmar had been ruled by a military since forever, but apparently there had been a civilian government elected in the past couple of years. It's weird to learn that a country was not under a dictatorship only when you get the news that they have reverted back to the dictatorship. It is under a dictatorship. The civilian government is just theater. It provides a scapegoat for the Rohingya thing. People are hitting pots and pans and making metal banging noises from their homes at 8 p.m. to show the disapproval of the military coup. This is one of the non-violent ways to protest. Civil services, including teachers, doctors, engineers, and nurses, are also holding civil disobedience campaign by not performing their duties, not going to work for the military-led government started this evening. Alright everybody, if you like this video, please either check out another video, subscribe, or comment. That'd be great. Because I don't want you doing any of those things unless you really want to, but check out the other content. And give me some feedback. You can be critiquey. I know, I'm asking for a lot of critique here. I'm a foreigner talking about stuff I don't know about. But hey, I'm trying to get other foreigners to learn more about it, and I'm trying my best to not be ignorant. So please tell me when I'm being ignorant so I can be less ignorant in the future. Yeah! Alright everybody, if you want to make videos just like this, you want to browse, use content as part of your videos, record your screen and whatnot, also make thumbnails easily and efficiently. You can look at 15 or 16 different thumbnail options at once, edit them all at the same time, and pick the one that you like the very, very most. We got options for you, and if you're interested in making YouTube content or tools related to YouTube content creation, please reach out to us by getting our email address from the About channel of this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao!